So this example, so far what we have integrated is nothing but creating a class called web service and with a delegate or a protocol created, and that has a method which gets implemented in all the view controllers, and through which we are getting a callback of the URL response. So that's what the designing point of view we had done. So at this point, I really don't know which one I created. I remember creating a username called 55 something like that. Okay, so it does let me uh, allow to log in, but remember there is a small time is taken. Once I click login, the application idle for some time and then moves on. That particular idling time may be varying depending on the data connection of your phone or wherever you are running. Especially for a small or lower end mobile connection, this time may be slightly longer. But in my understanding, most of the clients will come up with an idea saying that your application does not respond most of the time. This is a generic output your client will come and say, and you have to interrogate why. I tested, I press the login button. It takes a time, it takes a huge time, then only it goes to the second view control. What he tried to say, it takes longer time to validate the data from a data so coming from server and moves to the second view controller. Then you have to scrutinize and ask him what kind of internet speed you had. Did you connect with your Wi-Fi? Did you connect with your 3G? Then he will come and say, I'm staying in a place where the network coverage is quite bad. So the client won't explicitly accept the network, and because of the network connection, your application did not perform. Instead, he will try to say your application is bad. So to make him focused on the application, we usually we put a small loader as if something is being performed. So this guy will take it, okay, something is going on. Then he will be quiet until the particular loader screen disappears, then moves on. So that's a point we often call that strategy in HTML, like an Ajax loader, whatever. So that's the same thing if you could put. You'll avoid some sort of awkward moments from your client. Okay, let me put that as well before getting into actual coding of today. So storyboard. So almost all the screen makes use of our what you call web service. One component, this is called activity indicator view. So that's very clearly says like what it is going to display. Some sort of a kind of a loader kind of screen, like Ajax roller or whatever it is. That I'm going to display. Probably I'll keep it in the center. Slightly grayed small loader. Don't think about customizing too much at this point. We will we'll think about that later. So this loader, I have put it into the center of my screen. But once you click in your particular attribute inspector, just focus few things. First thing, behavior animating. Animating means it will start rotate. One. Make sure you click hides when stopped. Yes, we can automatically hide it whenever that particular loader is set to be stopped. So by default, I should not display it. I should display only when the user enter the username, password, and click login. Once you click login, only the loader appears. The loader displays until the server gives you a response. The moment the server gives you a response, the loader disappears, the user goes to the second screen. So we just need to handle in that way. So in the login view controller, since it is a interface builder element, okay, we have to initialize that because I put that into from my storyboard. So let me initialize some login view controller. So I think loader or something. I'll just put it. Okay, I just initialized it, and don't forget to add the constraint for the particular uh, what you call this activity indicator view, selected view, reset to suggested constraint. So it just added probably to the center and below to the login button. This is what it's trying to do. Okay. Let me synthesize it. I prefer synthesizing. Maybe that's what I usually say. It's my bias towards it. In fact, it's not something quite important. Okay. Now we have to first hide the loader because the loader by default should not be displayed. Stop animating mean once I stop animation, the loader will automatically disappear because the choice what we had created for the loader hides when stopped. Since I selected, so if I just stop it more than enough, it will get hidden. So by default it won't be shown, but it will be shown the moment the user click on login pressed or login button when he press the login button. So loader start animating. It means it will be visible and just start rolling on. Display until you receive the response. The response comes here. That's why we added a pragma mark already because it's a delegate method. So stop animating. Finish it when the response arrived from your server. Let us see what exactly happens. So there is no loader, nothing I could see. See that? That's just loaded for some time, then it moved on. So depending on the connection, it may be taking some time to complete the task. Then once completed, it goes on. So just we retain the user attention for some other reason so that some things are being performed over there. Once it is done, it moves to the next screen. So I would recommend keeping the loader in all the screens, and I mean what we call activity indicator in all the screen, and wherever you are making the call to the web service. So that keeps the user some sort of attention towards okay, some operation being paid off. Here also I would like to add along with that picker view. So both the thing will complete at this point. Registration view controller. The picker view is going to be dynamically going to be added. So it's not going to be interface builder IB element, IB outlet. So UI picker view. What's the name we keep? We'll give gender picker. Okay. And also I would have to add the activity indicator here also. But before that, let me synthesize this one. Gender picker. When you add a UI picker, it is apparent that you need to add two delegates, two protocols, because to listen which picker item has been picked up and also tell which data it is going to load. So it is apparent that when you add a picker, UI picker view data source and UI picker view delegate. So these two things you need to add, similar to the table view controller. Table view data source and table view delegate, which is something you need to be added. Those two protocols need to be added wherever the table is coming. But in this case, it's a picker, so we are adding both. And the picker has been added. Let us define its data source. Data source means which data it is going to load. Typically what we are trying to put is a male and female kind of thing. Maybe I'm going to need one NS array. This is a value it is going to hold. So let me put that as well. Before that, this guy started complaining, so we have to see some sort of the protocol. Those I mean abstract delegate methods has to be implemented. So we'll implement them first. Before that, let me see the document. What has to be implemented? What is this one? Data source. Once I hit on this, I get access to my header. Looks like these two methods. See, at required tells that these methods compulsorily need to be implemented. So typically, sorry, one, we'll put a pragma mark. First one, number of components in your picker view. I was telling just before that, for a date picker kind of thing, there will be 3 components: month, date, and year. So if you have advanced pickers, you may have a varying components, but in this case, this is a simple picker. Only male, female, something is going to be a single component is going to be there. So tell this one is going to have a single component. The other one, number of rows in a component depends on the size of the array. So gender array count. So depending on the size of the array, the number of rows it's going to have, because it is asking number of rows in that particular component. Single component, and this many of rows it is going to contain. And we still have 2 other more methods need to be implemented, which is optional still. Let me refer that. UI picker view delegate. Let me visit that. Title for the picker view, this one. Mean the picker view, what all the title is going to define or going to be displayed. So let me put a pragma mark for that. So UI picker view delegate methods are function, whatever. It's going to be in a string anyway. Okay, it is asking me what should I display. So depending on the array, gender array, object at the index of the row. This is what it's going to display. And one more method still pending. Let me see. Go picker view delegate. Title for now. I mean the click handle. Like if a user click on a specific picker, did select row. So this one I need to implement. These are all the optional type. If you implement, if you don't implement, it won't complain. But this one is a compulsory one. These two, because it had a required at the rate required. That's the reason even my class on Xcode was complaining with that yellow mark. But whereas this one is optional, but implementing these 2 methods would be very helpful. So whenever the selection happens on the picker, what you really want to do, we will decide about it. Since it is void, I can define a little later. Okay, first initialize the array. You can directly initialize in this way. You can initialize an array in this way, as well as a proper way would be init with objects. This is the proper way, in fact. This way or that way, whatever way you feel, you can initialize. Am I forgetting anything? Right. So I've initialized my array. It is going to have a gender array component, and based on that, so what is the text it is going to select? So I would like to display into gender field. So what is the selection I did? I'd like to display so whenever I pick an item from my picker view, it displays this particular text and transfer it to a text field with whatever selection has been done. But we are not done yet. First point, I need to define the input view so that the particular text field gets clicked, the picker appears. So setting the input view is the first part we have to do. Setting the accessory view also very important. Setting input accessory view. For example, you would like to put a OK button, cancel button or anything. So these two things we have to define in order to have our UI picker displaying. First point, the UI picker itself has to be initialized. So gender picker initialized, and importantly we have to tell gender picker setting the delegate, data source and delegate, because both the thing has been implemented here. We have to tell this we have to mention that then only these particular delegate or protocol functions or delegate function will take effect, because these function actually loading the data source of your picker, plus it handles the events, like any selection happens to your picker. So these methods will only take effect once you tell to the picker saying that the data source and delegate has been implemented here. If you do not define it, things will get disconnected. Your picker view will not be loaded with the required values. The delegate and data source can be programmatically initialized in this way. Otherwise, it's not a IB outlet, right? Okay, fine. So let it be. But if you are, bringing that picker view using this way, for example, there is a picker view and date picker is also there. Date picker is having a 3 components. So for example, if I try to show you, it doesn't give me a preview, but if you could see it, it has a 3 different components. And the picker view, if at all you are bringing the picker through a IB, interface builder, you can define its delegates using this particular plane here, the delegate option programmatically. Instead of programmatically, through here also you can define the delegates. Otherwise, this is the only way. So I've already done setting the data source and delegate for the picker view in this way. So delegate data source defined, I should be having the UI picker, or in this case gender picker, initialized. Now I need to tell gender field set input view gender picker. So anytime when you tap on the gender field, you should be able to see the picker appearing in your screen. So up to this we have done. First we'll see whether the picker appears or not. Yeah, we don't have a picker. See that the screen is hiding that particular input entry. This is where I would like to put my scroll view. For example, if the user want to scroll somewhere out and see the component. But anyway, end editing option we have already attached, because when I tap outside of my view or tap anywhere on the view, I can dismiss the picker view because I have already added touches begin with the end editing option. So when I tap outside, it will automatically get dismissed itself. But if you still want to add an accessory view mean any additional view on the top of your picker view, you can still do that. Slightly roundabout way, but that still works. First point, an accessory view, usually a toolbar, UI toolbar, say tool. I've noticed one issue here from the last example. A UI toolbar requires absolute width and height to be defined before it is added to a specific added as accessory view. So that also helps me to introduce one more object called CG rect, or computer graphics rect. We often say it's a C class. Defines the frame size, the size where you'd like to accommodate your view. This will be very helpful for any view you are creating dynamically, programmatically instead of interface builder. So this one I'm going to use. It first asks you to define a rectangular space. In that particular component could be placed. So the size of the rectangle, the space, like a kind of boundary for your view to accommodate, first has to be defined. In that your toolbar will be written. So it is actually, in fact, it's not CG rect. Create a rectangular. Sorry, for that I just define x, y, and width and height. So these are all the argument it is expecting. The x and y position is going to be 0, 0 because on the top of your picker view starting point. So that's not an issue. What is the width of your toolbar? Would like to display. So width is nothing but size of my view. Size of my view, frame size width. Slightly a complex object. So width of my toolbar is nothing but whatever the view size, the entire width it is going to occupy. Height could be a hard-coded value, maybe 35. If it is smaller, we'll increase it. And close it. Define your toolbar. So what you are trying to do here is the size of a toolbar through a rectangular space. So you define a rectangular, CG rect we often say, computer graphics rect is a pretty oldest C library, C++ library in Objective-C. So we define the CG rect make, we create a rectangular space and define the starting and point in XY pixel. So 0 position is X and Y position is also 0. The width of your toolbar is going to be the exact width of your view. It's nothing but the entire view width, the whole width. And height slightly 35 pixel sometimes. Now we have to define UI bar button item. OK button typically. It's actually bar button item. Initialize init with the title. OK. UI bar button style, UI bar button style done, will be fine. Target where you'd like to implement here. Action, as soon as the OK button is clicked, it is not a block method, it is a selector. Any function could be selected. So selector I have already added that particular button. Done pressed. Define that particular method. So this OK button, whenever the OK button is clicked, it is going to execute this particular function that will set the view editing dismissed. Okay. And after that we have to merge this OK button with the toolbar, and finally the toolbar with the accessory, I mean the gender field as an accessory. So let me try to add it. Toolbar set items. Oh, this guy expect an array. Okay, I'll do one thing. NS create an array first. Buttons. Array with objects. This one is more than enough. Okay, button. I'll let you know what is the last nil. We have one other way to say what exactly this overloaded method is going to do. I just created an array which comprises one single button, and then add that particular button to your toolbar. I mean the array to your toolbar. Toolbar set items bar buttons. So I added to this thing to my toolbar, and finally it is set to go as accessory view. It's gender field set input accessory view toolbar. So in this case, I should be seeing the OK. The height of the particular toolbar I set to 35. If you increase it, you slightly see a slight white area slightly enlarged. See that? This is the height. So I define a rectangular space. Within that I keep my component. So it defines the size of my particular view. 35 is, and most of the time, is ideal value to hold the toolbar. So the gender could be picked from here. When I click OK, it gets dismissed. Okay, by default we have to load some value, because when a very first time the register is called, it is having with the empty value, which is not an accepted option, because the user may click save immediately without even clicking on the gender. So what I prefer, we will preload some value. Object at the index set to 1. Mean by default it will have a female selector, 0 index male, and the first index is going to be female. By default it would be having this value selected. And also I'll tell my picker view also pointing to that. So gender picker set what exactly it is, select row. Okay, yeah, select the row. I'm going to select the first row and component, first component, and animate it. Yes. So both the case I need to make sure default value, the 1 is selected and the value has been entered with the female by default. You see that by default the female has been entered, and when I click on it, the female has already been selected. So both I am synchronizing, I am pointing to it. By default it is selected with the index 1 and also preloaded. I can change it and after that it will automatically modify. But by default value what you have set, female. In fact that is what I am sending to my server, 1 2 something. Okay, so now I have set the gender picker. And if you really want to keep the OK button at the end or middle, that's also one easiest mechanism available. Maybe I'll take this to teach you one more component. Let me show, I really don't know which one it is, something called flexible, yeah, flexible space bar button item. This is actually a kind of elastic kind of stuff. You can put this button wherever, it will try to push from both the end and result particular or adjacent button finding its own space. For example, if I keep the flexible space bar button just before, for example, if I create a space bar button, there is already a OK button is there. So let me create one more UI bar button item. Maybe I'll name it as a flex UI bar button item something. Let me initialize init bar button style item, I hope. UI bar button item flexible item space target set to nil, and it's also set to nil. I just have a flexible bar button. I'm going to add this just before the OK button. First one is the flexible bar button, then OK button. The flexible bar button will try to occupy the space fully and give one single space for the adjacent item. So if I put a flexible bar button just before the OK button, you will end up seeing the OK button pushed across to the end, because the flexible space would have occupied all the space. Just push the component in both the ends. So finally the OK has gone to the extreme right. So if you add one more, or probably maybe the flexible bar button one more time, 2 instance automatic reference counting, anyway it is there. So come on, 2 flex button in between, then 1 OK button. The flexible button would be pushing the component from both the end in the same impulse. The OK button will tend to appear in the center. The OK has come because both the side it is pushing the particular button in same force. So wherever you would like to keep some sort of alignment, you can use this kind of flexible bar button item, especially in a toolbar wherever you want to maintain some sort of alignment. It's up to you. So if at all needed, you can make use of it, but it's nothing to do with our design constraint still. Anyway, so those things we have done. Now time to adjust the web service, because the web service now we were entering 1 or 2, instead we are entering the male female. In this case it is going to be either 1 or 2. Going to make it as a D. Gender picker okay, 1 second. Selected row in a component 0. It should be integer. Okay. Selected row in a component 0 mean we have only one component, because this particular picker is a simple picker. not like a date picker, like a 3 different components. It's a single component. That's why it is a 0 component. Indexes start from 0. So the first component, what is the selected row, will be coming here. So in our web service document, we were sending male or female, either 1 or 2. So based on that, the row index would be sent, and naturally that's what the server is expecting. So we just modified it. And also we'll put a UI activity indicator for the registration as well. Sorry, this one. You have seen there's one more storyboard. Have you ever wondered why the storyboard is there? Okay, we'll add an activity indicator. I prefer to keep this guy somewhere in the center of my view. Okay, let me add the constraint, and we also make sure this one animates and hides when stopped. We'll update that, initialize that. This should be on registration view controller. Let us start. Name activity loader. Go ahead and synthesize. And make sure in the very first instance the activity loader having the stop animation so that it doesn't appear. So it will appear only when the user click on save button. So activity loader start animating. It will display until the user get the result from a web service. This is where he is getting. So activity loader stop animating. Just added them. So let us register. I just select a different one and click save. That activity appears and just dismiss itself. So the data has been successfully registered, the username, password, and all the information I do notice. So the gender, something going wrong here. Oh, actually indexes start from 0. That's not something we expect. Okay, we'll have to update, because according to server, number 1 is maybe male, 2 is female, but whereas the index start from 0 here. So what we will do, maybe slightly increment it. +1. The value will be incremented. So this male mean 1, female mean 2, something like that. Okay, so that doesn't matter. It didn't give a much error, even though. Gets, and the gender has gone as 1. Okay, fine. So now the user can go ahead and log in with the same credential. But here I would like to do a few more additional steps before getting into it. When the user successfully log in, So the login success coming over here. I would like to use the NS user default to save the username and password, because that is needed across all the screens. So standard user defaults, user default, set value for a key. First value is going to be, so typically it is going to come in this way. Okay, I need my web service document because it is for login. Let me get that. So when the user successfully logs in, he gets a array called data. In that, probably I'll save the username and the password. Maybe user ID also I'll save. It is looking like something unique coming. So I'm going to save everything to my user default. Before that, it is there. Once I get OK, there is going to be a data attribute, and in that it's going to be an array. So let me find that. Result object for a key called data. Because it is data, it is an array type because the square box is there. In that, the first iteration is something I am looking for. Okay. Set value user data object at the index 0. It actually is going to be an object, and I need to typecast it. I'll put it into a multiple line if I don't like it. From that, let's set user object இன்னும் அந்த கம்ப்ளைண்ட் ஃபிக்ஸ் பண்ணல நீங்கள். திடீர்னு இன்க்ரீஸ் ஆகுது, திடீர்னு இதாகுது. இங்கே இதா இதானே அது மட்டுமா? ரிமோட் இருக்கா? You don't have a remote? Okay, so I'm getting an NS array. I'm getting an array with the attribute name called data. So first part, I'm just retrieving that particular array, in this case NS array. In that array, every occurrence of an array is going to be a dictionary because it's an object. So the very first index, the 0th index, giving me a dictionary. In that index, I'm having a attribute name called username that I am associating with the key, same username. Maybe if you want a different key, do it. So like that, let me save everything. Set value. That one is for the document. It is called user underscore password. And we'll also save the user ID also, may be required for future use. Set value. Finally, user default synchronize in order to save whatever the default values we have entered. So this is very important to, it's like act as a session or something. The user has successfully logged in and you have in your default username and password has been added. Okay. So I'm saving all the details to my NS user default for further retrieval. You see that this is taking a long time because my internet speed might have reduced and due to some reason it takes a longer time. So if some sort of activity is going on, the client may not complain in your case, okay, something it is performing, it is something to do with my internet connection, that's the reason the result is not coming. So this is something, some sort of dynamicity to tell, okay, there is some sort of thing the application is working on, the application has not crashed, it only waits for the response from the server to come. Hopefully my internet connection is not broken. So this is fine. Remember, I changed the title of this particular back button to log out because by default should have been displaying login only. So I changed the title of that particular back button. Hope you know that how to do it. That particular thing possible from the storyboard itself. So this particular view controller having a navigation item title set to login. So its back button will appear here. so that it will have the same title would be displaying into the next view controller. So in such a case, if you select the navigation item, okay, you can change the back button title. So if you set it to logout, so while it appears, it will display it as a logout. So you can change it whatever title you want and accordingly handle the back button. So this is up to one part where we have completed the touch-ups whatever needed. Still, after login, what has to be done, we have to write. Okay. Here we would like to display a table. When the user click on OK, he'll enter the item name, quantity, price and save. I haven't add anything so far. So let us do that as well. Try to see if I can finish before your break, how much I could go. Okay, this particular view controller I want to display a table. But it looks like a view controller. Okay, we have to replace this guy. I prefer a table view controller. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete this particular view controller by highlighting the yellow mark, delete. Once you delete, the other view controller, where it is, that also got deleted. Oh, it's here. The two view controller lost the connection. That's the reason your storyboard is complaining scene is unreachable due to lack of an entry point or something like that. One of a scene has got unreachable because this view controller does not have any relationship to the rest of your application. So I'm just going to drag a table view controller because table view controller adds a table view along with the table view cell, everything added by default. So that's I'm going to use. First connected, it was connected to a manual segue, I hope. The segue had a name, login success segue. I hope it is the same. This is the one. Right. So now I just replaced it with the table view controller. This table view controller I am going to put all the required navigation item title for it. And add button. This one I would like to display it as a symbol instead of this one. Now clicking this plus will take the user to this view controller. So we are putting back the connection. So in my understanding that view is also reachable. Still this guy is okay, there are a couple of other warnings have come. Before that, let me put a corresponding class, new file, text class, shopping table view controller. So that's a benefit of using the table view controller because it puts a lot of pragma, I mean the protocols which can be used directly. Warning, come back to them. Number of selection in table view, number of rows in a selection, because it has the UI table view data source and UI table view delegate, everything has been implemented. and probably I can delete this view controller, which is no more useful. I'm going to delete. Remove references, will the file will be there in your folder, but references alone will be removed, meaning it will be removed from Xcode alone, but the physical file will be there in your folder. Move to trash will make sure that entire thing deleted, not only Xcode, physically deleted from your folder. So that I deleted. Now I'm going to point this one. Shopping table controller. Few things. Prototypes table must use reuse identifier. Identifiers. Okay, cell. Let me identify this one. You can give any name. My cell. Okay. Here I would like to put a label so that the student's name appears. Probably we can display multiple labels. So a table view controller, it's a kind of composite view of a table view. First the view, and the table view controller is nothing but a view with the table view by default added. Each occurrence of the view or the table is nothing but the label is going to be repeated. It's nothing but a cell. So this label where we are planning to display the user or the particular shopping item name. So it's not a student name. Right. So shopping item name. Maybe I can display quantity also here, but I'll come back to that a little later. First one, I have defined a label. I define a tag because to identify in runtime some number, any random number, so I just given a 111. So everything added. Make sure you set the constraint properly. We're done with this. The required stuff added here. Now we have to load the table items from web. It is going to be slightly complicated because in order to display the data, I need to bring it from internet. For example, depending on the user credential, we may have a number of items already added or may not have any items added. So depending on the size of the content, maybe I can finish this part first so that the data could be entered into the server. From there I can fetch these value display, because by default nothing is going to be there in my server. So I'll also come here. This is add edit item. If I could go here, just call add edit view controller. I've already kept some 3 different text fields. Item name, quantity and price. Actually label is missing. Let me remove the constraints first. Clear the constraints. We put the labels. Let's define, check our document, how to add, get all item, this one, add new shopping item. What are all things I need to send? Item name, quantity, price along with the username and password. Okay, item name. quantity. So name, quantity, price. Let the user enter everything. Okay, finally the save button. Okay. Now we'll add the constraints back. So we have name, quantity and price to be entered, and finally the save button clicked. This particular item will be saved. So let us add them first. So this one has already been set to add edit view controller. So let me open the add edit view controller. Okay, let me initialize the text fields first. So fields, item, name field, quantity field, okay. Let me add one more action button for pressing the save button. Save button pressed. This is to handle the callback of the save button whenever it is clicked. And these three, let me initialize here. Synthesize. Item name field, item price field, the quantity field. I just try to say the synthesize can be every single line, a single synthesize can also be used. So are separated by comma. This complaint because of our save button is not implemented. Okay. So whenever save button is pressed, it is going to make a call to a web service, and we have to implement the web service class here also. Protocol. Okay, in this case, web service delegate. Same way what we did yesterday. So let me initialize everything. Implement the missing one. So add the pragma mark. Okay. And also initialize your web service. Tell the web delegates have been implemented here. Set web delegates implemented here. So delegate implemented, initialized. I need to connect from my storyboard still. And also let me put the activity indicator. Okay, before that I'll finish the web service part. Web service, call web service URL to add with a payload. I need to decide the payload now. With the type, it is for add item. Payload, string with a format. Okay, which format needed? It is needed in this form. Item name is going to be, everything is going to be coming from text fields, comma. Let's start entering those values. First one, the username. It is going to be from my NS user default. So let me have the NS user default also initialized. From the user default, okay, object for a key, username, comma, user default. The next one is going to be the password. Then the other one, item name, quantity stuff. So item name field, text, item, next is quantity, text, item price field, text. Then we are done with the payload. So username, password, item name. So these first username and password will be taken from NS user default because that has been added when the user successfully logs in. So the values are there in the NS user default. So username and password, which is retrieved from NS user default. Username, password. The rest of the fields rest of the values being taken from the input text fields, and your payload is ready. And the URL which has to be called, which is there in our document. Okay, the moment I call this link, I should start displaying the activity indicator, and I can get back the result here. So the result is going to be add item, going to be having affirmative action stating that okay and then successfully added. Okay. Result object for key which is called result equal to the string. If it is having OK, then we let the user to dismiss or successfully added, we can assume it. But remember, we are going to use the same for edit as well, so we will have to work on this area slightly in a different way, because the same screen is going to access two different URLs, because this particular screen I'm going to use not only for adding, I'm going to use this for editing as well. So that is going to be slightly critical, but anyway, at least we'll make sure add working go or working perfect, then we'll decide about it. Let me put a ns log to see whether it is calling or not. And this should get dismissed. I mean, it should call the back segue to get dismissed itself. So that also we have to work on. There are plenty of things in this screen. Let me go back to the storyboard to have everything connected. First point, I need to connect the save button, action trigger, touchdown, go to and click on pick the save button. So now whenever I click on the save button, it will call these things, and resulting a web service callback happens and it will come here. Not only to that, I would like to add an activity indicator. That also I'll put it. I prefer to keep it center, maybe here. In meeting, hides when stopped, and suggest okay. Let me initialize that as well. I'll do one thing, I'll reset the suggested constraint one more time, because I remember removing all the constraints. So the constraints are added. So when a save button is clicked, it is going to save everything, and I should get a success callback. Before that, let me put the activity indicator synthesized. I will initialize in the wrong place. Okay, to say. Initially set it hidden, and start when you click on save button, and dismiss it when a result is arrived. Okay. Successfully logged in, and okay, successfully added. Okay, so it looks like addition goes successfully. This is from a login response. So if a successfully added message comes, you have to make sure dismiss the view controller, go back to the previous view controller. So that we have to complete that. Then maybe I'll leave you guys. Maybe tomorrow I'll add the rest of the part. At least I'll dismiss the view controller and go back to this view controller when successfully added. The back segue we have to add now. Okay, so the back segue, the placement is little critical because it has to be always added to the first responder, not in the same responder. So the add edit view controller was launched from shopping table view controller, because from the table view controller there is a plus button. I am from there I'm going. So that is actually the first responder. I mean the previous one, naturally the first responder for this view. So I have to add one method with the argument storyboard segue. Implemented to handle the callback. Also, any manual callback, anything you need to do, you can probably uncomment this particular pragma mark, prepare for segue if required, but at this point we don't need it. Okay, so let me add a back callback. First point, it has to be manual because the save has to verify whether the successful callback made. So I need to create a manual segue. Sorry, let me pick the function. Again the same bug has come. I've noticed this bug comes sometime. The first responder unable to identify. So there is a callback segue. It's not there. Did I save that? Looks fine for me. I really don't see any issue. This is a bug, in fact. Okay, I'll explain the rest of the part more. This is actually a bug, in fact. I remember some of you were getting this blank one. You were getting, right? How did you fix? You create a new project. Okay, let me, I need to fix now. I'm getting the same bug now. Okay, we'll fix it up maybe tomorrow's session, because the back segue is not visible at this point. But there is a way to do that as well, because there is, I'm just depending, there is a program, option to set the segue. For example, if you create a segues, you can define the action and class module, whatever connected with that. So let me try. I'll first try whether if I can fix it. Otherwise, we'll see what exactly the reason this particular bug is coming. I refer the documentation. It is actually a kind of bug which doesn't let the exit segues display. It happens sometimes it doesn't happen. Okay, we'll fix that maybe in the tomorrow session. Tomorrow I'll start this thing in the morning session itself. So make sure you complete whatever thing I upload today. Okay. And remember, your case study not yet officially been